When I was a kid, I loved Marvel Comics. Some of my earliest memories are going on the family Windows 97 computer to watch this 3D animated short film where Iron Man, Hulk, and Spider-Man team up, and I remember just playing it over and over again. From there, an obsession was born. Once the MCU, or Marvel Cinematic Universe, started up, I was hooked from the get-go. Being a 6-year-old ankle-biter, I vividly remember watching Iron Man in theaters and being blown away by it. I got really into comics, specifically the original run of Secret Wars, which was being re-released through Hasbro, where you'd get one of the 12 issues in that run, as well as 2 action figures, which is a great way to get kids into comics because you get 2 toys and a comic book. It's genius. Anyways, with each new theatrical release in the MCU, my love for this world only grew larger. When Avengers was released in May 2012, my dad lied and told my elementary school that I was sick, and then we went to go see it in theaters. Trust me when I say that I never missed a single MCU movie in theaters from Iron Man all the way to Endgame. I was a diehard fan, however, I mean that in the past tense. I don't want this to be another rundown of how the early MCU was peak. It wasn't. And how everything after Endgame somehow ruined and broke the universe apart, even though that's literally what happened. Plenty of people have already made that argument, and I don't think I have anything new to add to that cycle of complaints. What I'm going to try and do here is figure out where Marvel stands right now as a franchise with Doomsday on the horizon, where it might be heading over the next few years, and why my personal excitement slowly drifted away in the first place. The first teaser trailer for Avengers Doomsday just dropped, and we're probably going to get more. I've seen a million leaks online, but regardless, it felt like the right time to step back, look at the bigger picture, and ask a real question. Is Marvel on its way to a comeback, or are we simply watching a very long and desperate decline into irrelevancy?
Every Marvel film ranked in 6 seconds. They're all equally shit. Grow up, you fucking virgins.
First off, we have to understand why the MCU worked on a universal basis prior to 2020. For starters, I really do think that the primary reason as to why the MCU grew into such a massive cultural event was because it understood long-form storytelling at a level that mainstream blockbusters rarely even attempted. Each film felt like a chapter in a larger story that was being built with tangible purpose. You could track emotional payoffs across multiple movies, and that structure rewarded investment. While it didn't always lead to the filmmakers involved making perfect movies, it did do a great job of establishing a crystal clear sense of direction that general audiences could very easily latch onto. Fans showed up to the theaters multiple times a year because these movies felt like pieces in a larger puzzle, as opposed to isolated products, and it's that sense of momentum that made Phase 3 such a landmark moment for cinema. After Avengers Endgame, Marvel lost that clear forward motion. The franchise entered a transition period without a real destination in mind, like a professional sports team being stuck in a constant cycle of rebuilding their roster, instead of actually building towards something like, I don't know, winning a championship. The MCU scattered itself across films and Disney Plus shows that rarely connected in a meaningful way. The result was a loss of actual cohesiveness where characters appeared, disappeared, and reappeared without emotional necessity. New story arcs felt more like placeholders than the next stage of a plan, and as a result, audiences weren't exactly tired of superheroes. There wasn't really superhero fatigue, but they were tired of homework. Having to watch hours and hours and hours of mediocre content just to enjoy something that is equally as mediocre in the theaters. People stopped understanding the point of the journey, and as a result, they stopped caring about each step along the way. And I myself stopped caring. I vividly remember being so invested in WandaVision and how different it felt from prior entries in the franchise. I loved how it felt borderline Lynchian at times.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
But I was so let down when the payoff to all of this was one big CGI fight.
Wanda, what are you doing?
Come on, Wanda!
Whoa. I think I just figured something out, Beavis.
What?
This sucks.
It felt like one big bait and switch, where I thought I was getting something fresh and unique, but instead I just got the same thing I've seen countless times over. Still, I tuned in for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but that was ultimately the straw that broke the camel's back. While the writing of most MCU films are admittedly subpar, I just couldn't get over how slapped together this show was.
You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up.
It could have been a decent movie, I think. Honestly, I might even make a fan edit of this into like a 2-hour movie that condenses everything down. I even heard rumors that it was because of reshoots, that there was this entire like subplot that was scrapped about a virus or a pandemic. And that makes sense because of COVID, but still, I was just done. I was tired of being burnt. I was tired of just getting lied to by the studio that was saying, yeah, we're making fresh new stories. And then they're just doing the same thing over and over again. I was tired of watching the same movie and the same story being told ad nauseum. Beyond Spider-Man No Way Home and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I stopped seeing the movies in the theaters. I just waited till they were on Disney+, and even then I didn't really watch most of them. Were there entries that totally interested me? Sure, a Sam Raimi directed Doctor Strange movie sounded so cool, but the trailers made it look like just another piece of Marvel slop. It felt like a million new shows and movies were coming out, and I checked out as a result. I simply did not care anymore. This actually leads me to my next point. Another issue came from the massive expansion into streaming. Disney Plus increased the volume of content. Instead of us getting 2 or 3 movies that were about 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours each, we're now getting multiple TV shows. The amount of content you needed to consume had quadrupled almost instantly. It diluted the focus that originally defined the MCU. Because television storytelling demands long character arcs without having the thematic impact or visual coherence that a theatrical 90-minute movie carries. I think their biggest misstep was how they treated every single series like it was required reading without giving those stories enough urgency to justify that expectation. As a result, viewers ended up picking and choosing a la carte style, which fractured the once unified audience. I know people that just straight up didn't watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, but they watched Loki. Or maybe it's the other way around. It just caused a ton of confusion. So if you didn't need to watch everything anymore, then what's the point of making a large-scale interconnected story? At the same time, Marvel stopped nurturing characters who could anchor the franchise long-term. Iron Man, Captain America, and Black Widow left enormous narrative gaps, which is fine if you have a younger cast waiting in the wings. And they did. They had Yelena, they had Sam Wilson, they had Ironheart, which could have been decent replacements, but I think this current run of Marvel lacked a true Tony Stark type figure where the whole world centered around them. Why they didn't move forward with Spider-Man as being that figure likely has to do with rights issues with Sony, but at this time, they had the X-Men, and they could have pivoted to focusing Phase 4 on the arrival of the mutants and the Fantastic Four being more central figures. Instead, the studio introduced replacements, but never actually developed them with the same dramatic patience. Character arcs were rushed or spread too thin across multiple projects. Instead of evolving relationships, Marvel constantly leaned on just reintroducing the same characters over and over again. Like, why are we introducing Sam Wilson in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier and then immediately reintroducing him as Captain America in Captain America Brave New World? Why don't you guys just stick to your guns and just carry on the story? That movie feels like a reintroduction of a character that I was already introduced to back in 2014. It just feels like they weren't confident in what they were putting out. This brings me back to the question that I started with. Marvel built a structure that rewarded long-term investment and then suddenly pivoted into short-term quantity. The decline in cultural enthusiasm came from a very clear breakdown in storytelling discipline and a loss of long-range vision. To me, the reason the Avengers Doomsday trailer matters is that it signals a somewhat heavy-handed and rushed attempt to a more unified, if not desperate, direction. We're getting Chris Evans as Captain America back, which could be cool, but it makes me wonder, what's the point of the Sam Wilson movie? What's the point of Falcon and the Winter Soldier? What's the point of saying, this is our new Captain America, and then he's not Captain America anymore? Or maybe he will be, I don't know. To me, it's just baffling. So much of Phase 4, I think, was about setting up the future, and now we're abandoning the future for the past. Is that going to be the theme of the movie? Maybe, but I'm not seeing any signs that it will for sure be that. I think that could be kind of compelling, all things considered, but who knows? This is going to rely heavily on nostalgia bait. We're going to be getting Spider-Man back and the Fox X-Men, and it just makes me wonder, like, why? These stories have already been told. Is this what we're doing? Are we just retelling the same stories with the same tired, grizzled actors over and over again? And I'm not even dissing Tobey Maguire or the guy that plays Cyclops, James Marsden. That's the name. It's like, dude, get your bag, get the paycheck, I don't care. I'm more mad at the writers and the filmmakers for not having a cohesive plan from the get-go. Did Disney not learn from Star Wars? Did they not learn from just rushing out a project just to immediately, like, oh man, Star Wars is a whole other topic for another day. But my point being, this feels messy. This feels really rushed. I think if the franchise is serious about building toward meaningful payoffs again, this film could mark the beginning of a new phase that actually understands what worked in the first place. Whether that potential becomes reality is the real question that I want to try to explore in this very bizarre video. It's a rant, it's scripted, I don't even know what this is anymore, but let's keep going. The timing of this shift becomes even more interesting when you look at the state of DC. Marvel actually has a rival that feels like a legitimate creative threat, instead of a studio that was constantly tripping over itself. James Gunn's Superman in 2025 landed in a way that Warner Brothers hasn't pulled off since Nolan's Dark Knight era. General audiences are paying attention again. Critics are taking DC seriously again, and for the first time in years, the cultural conversation didn't automatically default to Marvel being the gold standard for quality comic book movies. A while back, the former showrunner for X-Men 97 put out a tweet that basically said something to the effect of, Superman had a cultural impact. You saw memes about, Hope Corps and kindness is punk rock. But when Fantastic Four came out only a week or two later, there was nothing. It died out almost immediately. There was no discourse around it. Meanwhile, Superman, I'm still seeing memes on my feed about that movie. It's like, is it over, chat? Is DC up on top again? Who knows? I just think that changes the entire state of the marketplace, since Marvel isn't really operating in a vacuum anymore. Disney is very clearly aware of that shift. You can see a noticeable change in how Marvel leadership has started talking about long-term planning, grounded character arcs, and creative control. Kevin Feige, dude, how do I get an S in there? Kevin Feige has talked more openly about quality control this past year than he ever did during the post-Endgame slump. There is actual competition now, and Marvel knows that they need to step it up or they will lose it all. There's clearly more of a push for fewer projects with longer development time and more theatrical focused storytelling, and that lines up with a studio that suddenly feels the pressure. But as much as they talk about that stuff and how, we're going to give our creatives more time, they didn't do that with Doomsday. The movie didn't have a finished script going into filming. Compare that with the DCU, which James Gunn has said multiple times, has to have a script that is finished before moving into filming. That's studio policy. So it's like, is Disney just talking out of their ass again? Frankly, I don't trust them one bit. I don't really trust any major corporation, to be honest with you, but Disney especially. However, I think this new sense of competition from DC is a great thing. I think it could lead to something that we haven't seen in the comic book movie space before. Genuine competition at the highest level. The MCU and the DCU are positioned to operate like two heavyweight franchises aiming for cultural dominance over the next decade. If both studios invest in long-term storytelling, confident thematic direction, and strong character foundations, then we could see a creative arms race, a Cold War, where each side tries to one-up the other with better films and bolder ideas. It's the kind of rivalry that pushed the comic industry in the past, and it could push superhero cinema in the future.
There's a new Marvel out that's supposed to be nuts. We should go see that.
So, what should Marvel's game plan be? Where do they go from here? I'm not going to try and speculate what specific comic book properties they choose to adapt, but rather, I think from a fundamental filmmaking perspective, they need to abandon the Marvel formula. I'm not going to try and speak on behalf of an entire fandom, but I think most people are fairly sick of it. I don't want to see a quirky, relatable hero gaining or revising their powers while facing a personal flaw mirrored in the villain. in a story that overwhelms the audience with quips to hamper any and all emotional stakes before going through a third-act CGI battle and ending with a post-credit scene that teases future MCU content. Has this structure worked in the past? Yes, absolutely, but almost 20 years after the original Iron Man movie, it's getting very tiresome. Honestly, Marvel should look to DC for its winning formula of letting auteur directors take the helm and do their own thing. Sacrifice the long-term storytelling for short-term storytelling and go for quality over quantity. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. I guess 5 cents because the penny's dead now? Whatever. It's entirely possible that Avengers Doomsday grosses billions at the box office and they'll stick to their guns, but I guess only time will tell. And with all that out of the way, I'm Cole McCormick, you're watching Firewood Media. If you like what I had to say here, consider subscribing and checking out my DCU commentary videos where I talked about a lot of the Snyder cult stuff that was going on around the same time, talking about James Gunn's Superman, the whole 9 yards. We are so close to 50,000 subscribers, so genuinely, thank you so much for even just watching this video. I really appreciate it. Massive thank you to channel members for making videos like these possible. Their names are listed right up here on screen. For $1.99 a month, you can get early access to select videos and access to members-only videos and podcasts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.